So as I look around at the plethora of games available today, one thing that strikes out at me is that this generation in particular had a ton of open world games and a lot of games with existing franchises that were previously linear go to a more open world route. Now, some of you guys may sit here and think this is a non-issue because you're essentially getting more content. What's wrong with giving more content and more play space for you to enjoy the game? At the same time, I'm seeing this reduction of sort of quality that games have when they're coming out now. Now they're coming out and they're half-assed, there's broken, the features are missing, they're not optimized, they're not running well. But it's like, look at the size of the world, look at how much content we give you. And I'm a quality over quantity type of guy. I would rather have something in my hands that is limiting yet foolproof, rather than a lot of stuff that's just simply wasteful. And I find a lot of games have these large open worlds and they're beautiful in scale, and the amount of variety sometimes is nothing short of breathtaking. But what you do in these worlds is just laughably stupid at times and very, very, very boring. And so it's like a lot of window dressing, and it's a bit of hope on the developers' part because they're like, okay, well, if we can get our player base to enjoy our games longer, then that means that more people will enjoy our game and be playing our game a lot longer. And it's just we can sell them things on DLC, and if we give them a lot of stuff, they'll sit there and they'll think highly of the game because of all this content that's available. And I've seen this a lot this generation because I really made a point to play as much as I can, to even play games and experiences that I normally wasn't into. I would give a chance. And I play so many games, and nearly every single game has a large open world structure, so that when I play a linear game every now and again, it suddenly strikes me as something incredible. Like oh wow, this is so relaxing and this is so awesome. I feel like I'm taking a trip back to my childhood again, where you could actually play a linear game and 8 to 10 hours wasn't considered short, But it's interesting because so many games are going towards this structure now that you sort of have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Is it worth it for you to spend 40 hours in a single player game, but you only enjoy 15 of those 40 hours because the other, 25 hours of the game, you're sitting there just doing repetitive, boring, unfulfilling content? Or is it more worth it for you to say, okay, here's a 10-hour game. It's incredibly enjoyable from start to finish for the full 10 hours. And I'm more after those experiences, Right now, I'm currently sort of in a Resident Evil marathon, and I just played Resident Evil 4 for the first time this past weekend, and I had a blast with this game, let me tell you. It was my first time playing Resident Evil 4, and I know it's been like a fan favorite of the franchise. And this game is a very linear game, right? Classic level by level structure, very story driven. There's cutscenes breaking it up. And I had such a blast playing this game, and it wasn't anything groundbreaking at all. Even when it came out, it wasn't like, oh my god, we never seen this before. But the tension held up, and everything about the game held up. I even think it looks good to this day. The only thing that I felt was sort of like, okay, this is some kind of I gotta adjust my mindset because this was 2003 or 4 when that game came out, was the camera controls. You don't actually have control of the camera. You have to literally turn your character. He's like a mannequin. He's stiff. You have to turn your character in the direction you want to aim and stuff, and you can't just like look around. Navigation is it's that old school game design mentality. So I had to readjust my mind. But once I got used to that, once I played the game and I got used to those controls, my God, it was such an awesome experience. And I sort of thought back, and I was thinking back, okay, over the past, out of all the games I played in 2018. How many of them were really linear? And I could barely think of any, like, right off the bat. And I did play a lot of games last year, but the brunt of them was open world games. And there's even a lot of games that, maybe they're not open world, but they got like this really large play space and there's exploration and everything like that. But this is really a video where I just want to ask you guys up front: are you tired of open world design? Do you wish that we would get linear games again? Because I miss those games. Even though Resident Evil 4 was a 12.5 hour experience for me, I literally had a blast from start to finish. I enjoyed the game immensely. I thought it was simply fantastic, and I could see why people love the game so much, because a lot of it, all the tension and everything like that, it just holds up so well to this day. And then I think back and I'm like, okay, but I put 67 hours in Red Dead Redemption 2, and I enjoyed that game literally from start to finish, yes. But yeah, there were some times where it was like, okay, this is a bit tedious. This is getting kind of a bit old. And even though I think that game was fantastic, it was still sort of there were some sort of moments that felt like chores. And I would say more so with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which I just played somewhat recently too. That game, I didn't spend as much time as I did in Red Dead Redemption 2, but I would say that the majority of my time spent there most of it was sort of meaningless content. And there was this stark difference between the quality open world game like Red Dead Redemption 2 and something like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where it's like, oh, look how many islands you can go to, and look how many side missions are here, and look at all these characters you can talk to. And it's like, but no one's saying anything interesting. No one's telling me to do anything interesting. So what's the point here? I feel like we really need to take a step back, and we need to, and part of this maybe is perhaps the consumer's fault, because we've been whining and whining and whining about, oh, games are so short. They expect us to pay $60 for this 6-hour campaign, and perhaps this influx of open world games is a result of our complaining from last generation. And maybe it's also just a sign of saying, hey, we have more power with these consoles. We have better technology, which means that we want to push these worlds to be as large as possible, as filled as possible, and we just want you to sort of have this gigantic play space to be in. And I understand that perspective. I'm going to bring up Mirror's Edge and Mirror's Edge Catalyst here right now, because these are two, Catalyst is a reboot of a franchise, but Mirror's Edge was a very linear game. And when you play Mirror's Edge, when you really think about the ultimate like Mirror's Edge experience, that is an open world game, right? An open world structure game where you have the ability to go anywhere, and the world is vast and huge, and you can go inside buildings, and it's so dynamic. You can go on the street level, you can go back up to the rooftops if you want. You just like, here's your objective, decide how to get there. And we got an open world with Catalyst, and I was thinking to myself, oh, this is incredible. I absolutely love what they're doing. I cannot wait. And when I finally got to play Catalyst, it was only then I understood that Mirror's Edge was simply not ready for an open world yet. And so what happened is, in Catalyst, you had an open world that was about maybe a tenth the size of the actual game world, because it's this huge city, right? But they only give you literally a sliver of this huge city to actually explore and free roam around in. And on top of that, most of the content in that game was sort of just meaningless. The side missions didn't really do anything. Some of them were quite enjoyable, but out of all of them, there was only one side mission that actually was useful, and that was the one that unlocked fast travel. And it was fun because a lot of it was puzzle solving. And then what the game did is, instead of creating this openness for the single player missions, it basically just took the linear levels of Mirror's Edge and then put an open world area in between each level. So your single player missions were still linear, and those were fun because they were controlled environments, right? But you just had like this open world to explore in between those moments. So it was sort of really underutilized. And what I realized with that game is that, okay, the perfect experience for that game today is sort of a Deus Ex style approach. And I like this approach because it's sort of like, okay, there is some exploration, but there's always a general direction of where you're going. And I would much rather play games like these today. You know, I look at like something like Hitman, you know, it's like you always know what you're supposed to do in that game. You always know where to go, right? But exploration yields some really fantastic results sometimes. And finding new areas that you haven't been to before is fun and engaging, but you're never lost and you're never overwhelmed. You always feel like, okay, there's my objective. I can get there if I want to, but I'm gonna go over here first and have fun over here. And you know, those are the type of experiences that I tend to enjoy these days. But I just wish that they would bring back these sort of hardcore linear experiences like the old school Uncharted games, or like Resident Evil 4 that I just played. And I'm gonna do my replay of Resident Evil 7 this week, and then I'm gonna start Resident Evil 2, the remake. So I don't know if that game's style, the remake, it seems like it's another, like, you know, straight linear level by level type game, but I just don't know yet because I haven't played it, right? But I miss these games, and I feel like we've been sort of you know, it's we've been spoiled by the amount of content, but game design has sort of not progressed with the power and the ability to create these large open worlds. It's sort of like, oh, look how pretty we can make it, but we haven't gotten better at the side missions. We haven't gotten better at the storytelling. You know, it is still lacking behind what is essentially incredible technology to create worlds this vast. I mean, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, that game is beautiful. For every single area in that game is gorgeous. You're just like just blown away by the sheer amount of visuals and the quality of nearly every single area that you go to, and there's so much variety, right? But again, what you do there, a lot of it is just like meh. You know, it's like this stark contrast between really boring stuff and really just poorly told stories, but these really beautiful and vast worlds to explore in. And I think that we need to, you know, really improve on the side of storytelling and mission giving and structure and things like that, so it can match the beauty of these open worlds. And I'm hoping that next generation, it just doesn't become worse, because that would be terrible. You know, I enjoy taking my time with games, you know, but I also have a life, and unfortunately I can't sit there like I could when I was 15 years old and my only responsibility was going to school. I can't sit there for, you know, 10 hours on the weekends, and I can't sit there for 4 or 5 hours on the weekdays and put in all this time and energy to games and beat them in a matter of a couple days. You know, I got responsibilities. You know, I have a job. I got you know, I have adult life to basically take part in, and I'm finding a lot of these games are very difficult to enjoy as a result of that. And I just hope that next generation comes around, a lot of people focus on quality rather than quantity, because I really just felt that this generation was all about, okay, refinement, but we didn't improve on anything in terms of the core gameplay, and we didn't redefine gaming in any single way. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. All right, do you think that we've just gotten too many open world games, that it's a bit ridiculous, that the content has not improved like I do? Or are you enjoying this sort of rush of open world games that we've had? Or are you enjoying seeing more and more games give you more and more content, and regardless of the content that's in there, you enjoy that exploration aspect, even if you're not particularly doing anything interesting? All right, let me know, guys. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will talk with you all later. Thanks.